I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm wondering if you can share with us maybe what that looked like.
I feel like anytime I tell this story, some dead relative is in the grave clutching their pearls, going, "No, Julie, don't."
Hi, everyone. My name is Matthew Garza, and this is our new video interview series here at diaTribe called Spilling the Tea. As part of our Spoonful of Laughter campaign, Spilling the Tea is our chance to have honest, authentic, and hopefully hilarious conversations with people who are living life to the fullest with diabetes. Now, as diaTribe's Destigmatized Director in charge of all of our initiatives focused on addressing diabetes stigma, but also as someone who doesn't personally live with diabetes, I cannot tell you how excited I am to learn more about the nuances, the ups and the downs of life with diabetes, right alongside every one of you. Now, we are not going to shy away from the difficult topics or the realities of what this chronic condition is like, because we know it is serious, complex, and often frustrating, and nobody asks for diabetes. But we also aren't scared to discuss just how silly and ridiculous diabetes can be each and every day. Now, because we're releasing this very first interview on Mother's Day, it only made sense to have our first topic be on, well, motherhood and diabetes. So, with that, I am thrilled to introduce our very first guest, my dear friend and colleague, Julie Heverly. Julie is the Vice President of the Time and Range Coalition and Patient Advocacy right here at diaTribe. And she spends her days working on expanding awareness and adoption of Time and Range as a daily diabetes management tool to empower healthcare professionals and people living with diabetes. Now, when Julie isn't hard at work making the world a better place for people living with diabetes and making my job even more fun, she's busy moonlighting as her own pancreas and traveling around the world, enjoying the life that she's built with her husband and their daughter. Now, having worked with Julie for many years, I knew she would be the perfect person to invite on the show to talk about this topic. Julie, thank you so much for being here with me today.
No problem. Thank you for having me, Matthew. This is actually really exciting to talk about the biggest blessing in my life, which is being a mom.
That makes me so happy. Well, then let's just start right there. I'd love to ask, when did you know you wanted to be a mom? And had you already been diagnosed with diabetes at that point? Like, what was the reaction from your friends or your family or your healthcare team?
I did not grow up being the kind of girl who babysat and dreamed of having a family. That wasn't how my mom was, and so it's not how I grew up. And I was diagnosed with with diabetes in college, and so that made like future planning a little bit less clear. But I was thinking about it the other day, and in 2007, we lost my father-in-law. And less than 2 years later, we lost my dad. And I will say, having lost both of those people in our family really changed the way that we saw the world and that we saw our futures and that we approached family. And it really impacted the way that I interacted with my diabetes management. And um, I was flipping through, I have this journal that I keep, and I've had it since 2006. Yeah, that's track on
Doesn't
it.
surprise me at all.
And I saw that on November of 2009, I wrote that I needed to turn over a new diabetes leaf. That's
Wow.
actually like what it says. That's so typically corny of me. And that's when I got a new healthcare team. And what I realized in that act of empowering myself was that I had really been become frustrated with the doctors and the healthcare providers who were second guessing my management, my ability, and my goals. And then that just started to like really frustrate me. And so after I made that declaration that I was going to turn over a new leaf and I was going to be healthier, I met 2 months later my new endocrinologist, and I loved him right from the start. He had so much faith and belief in me, and he told me, if you want to have a healthy pregnancy, we can make it happen. And my husband gets really mad that he's left out of that equation, but if it weren't for Dr. Jabor at Jefferson Hospital in Philadelphia, I wouldn't be a mom today.
Oh, one, that makes me so happy that like you were able to take that journey. Two, I can imagine your husband is a little, like What am I, just chopped liver?
Exactly. He's like, have you even looked at our daughter? She looks just like me. But, without the doctor believing in me, I don't think that myself or my husband would have ever thought that we could have had the healthy pregnancy that we ended up having.
Sometimes you literally just need like a healthcare team that really believes in you and is willing to help you make it work.
Yes.
You know that?
I had more than a dozen doctors in three different cities and states, PCPs, gynos, even an eye doctor tell me that I shouldn't get pregnant, that it would be far too dangerous for me. It would cause complications for the baby and I. And I'm pretty sure if you ask my husband now, he would tell you that the biggest complication in our life is that my daughter and I are obsessed with sea otters and jellycats. Like, that's the biggest problem in our life.
I feel like that was the start to a joke of like, how many doctors does it take to get pregnant? How many doctors does it take to screw in a light bulb? Like,
Exactly.
basically the same conundrum. So it sounds like it was quite a journey to get to the point of getting to be pregnant. And I feel like I remember a while back that you were telling me that there was this really funny story about how you actually found out you were pregnant. And it was some pretty hilarious circumstances. Now, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm wondering if you can share with us maybe what that looked like.
I feel like anytime I tell this story, some dead relative is in the grave clutching their pearls, going, "No, Julie, don't." So after we got the green light from Dr. Jabor and he, said, "Go forth and attempt this," it took us 2 years. And so during that time, a lot of practicing happening, but like not a lot of results that we were looking for. And I remember having an appointment with him one March, and he was like, if and when you get pregnant, call us immediately. And I was like, okay, great. A year later, I'm headed to a college friend's wedding. Now, it's been almost a decade since I've graduated. I haven't seen my sorority sisters in years, and
Uh-huh.
I'm gearing up for an Irish Catholic wedding on St. Patrick's Day, biggest exciting event of my year. And I realize I'm a couple of days late. And so, in between the church wedding and the reception, we stopped at a CVS, picked up a test that I took in the bar of a bathroom on St. Patrick's Day to find out that I was indeed expecting. That's why they're clutching. But I was so elated, but I was equally terrified. And I remember coming out of the bathroom stall and our waitress was in the bathroom and I was like, "I'm pregnant." Like I couldn't
Can't
contain
hold it
it.
in.
So excited. And she was like, "What does that mean?" I was like, "Fill the beer bottles up with water." I don't know. And then obviously I went out and I told my husband. But the next day, it was a Sunday because St. Patrick's Day, it was a wedding, it was on a Saturday. The next day, I called my diabetes educator and told her. And I didn't tell the next person, my mother, for another 5 weeks because it was such a journey and there were so many things that needed to be
Yep.
worked out and figured out that I wanted to feel really confident in the fact that I was going to be able to help have a healthy pregnancy because my whole family, I knew that they wanted us to start a family, but somewhere along the journey, they also got nervous too. I had been living with diabetes for 14 years. I had already been married 11 years. My favorite thing that my husband ever said to me was, "We're happy. If we have a baby, that's great. But if we don't have a baby, we'll still be happy." And so that took a lot of pressure off me, but I still wanted to have this baby. And so it was quite a journey and it was completely worth it. It was completely worth it to um, no, I've never seen any of them ever again, but to know all of those doctors that said no were wrong,
Yep.
and to be able to, just go on this journey and keep living my life and thriving with diabetes because at I was already in the field of working in the diabetes space professionally, and I spent all this time educating and empowering people, and there was still that component that I wasn't able to do. So it was really great to be able to share my journey,
Yeah.
and yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
no, I love it. And I love that story. It's as funny as I remember. Julie, I don't know if I have ever mentioned this. I'm Irish on my mother's side, so I do know a thing or two about a St. Patrick's Day Irish bar bathroom pregnancy announcement.
No.
Listen, it happens more than once. You're not alone out there. I come along from a very long line of fertile Fitzgeralds. And so, what are you going to do, right?
I mean, you need to know before you consume the
Right?
appropriate amount of wedding festivity beverages.
Exactly. So, speaking of my own mother, I remember the exact moment where I was when she showed me the movie Steel Magnolias. Now, at the time, I was like a young gay 14-year-old. So I was like blinded by the big hair and the Southern accents and all those beautiful women in the salons. But I do think that if I was a young woman with type 1 diabetes trying to become a mom or had just become pregnant, it might be a very different experience, kind of watching that film, seeing the character of Shelby and the things that she went through. So I'm curious, how did the movie make you feel when you saw it? And maybe even before and after you were going through a similar journey yourself.
Well, I'm old enough that I got to see Still Magnolias on VHS. So, hi. And when I saw it, it was like the first time I saw it, it was before my diagnosis, and I loved it. I loved those women, Julia Roberts. I mean, what a gem. And I just remember it being this amazing story of female friendship. And that was something that I loved and I embraced, and I just wanted, I wanted that kind of life with my female friends. And so it was always one of my favorite movies. And then I was diagnosed in college. Um, and I remember like my sorority sisters, my female friends being like, they were some of the ones who were like, my dad has diabetes. You're showing a lot of similar problems. You might need to get checked. And that was really hard hearing that from them. And I remember being in my dorm room watching Steel Magnolias on VHS and just being like, no, no, this cannot be what I have. I'm too old. Shelby got it when she was little. And I remember because I love stories and I love theater, I remember reading that Steel Magnolias was based on the author's family. It was based on his sister and their family experience. And so when we added diabetes into my equation, that movie just became a punishment. And I would watch it when my diabetes, like when my A1C would come back and it was bad. Or I'll never forget the day that my sister-in-law called to tell us that she was expecting her first child and she was younger than me, and it didn't seem right that she was going to be a mom before me. And I came home from work and I put in Steel Magnolias on DVD that time. And I cried. I cried for 2.5 hours, and my husband could not console me. And it was this story. It was the only story that I knew that talked about diabetes. And it was the only story that I knew that talked about diabetes and pregnancy and motherhood. And it took years for me to realize that that is one story
Yep.
because it was the only one I heard. And then I started finding the diabetes online community, the DOC, and people were sharing stories on there. And Carrie Sparling had this whole blog, and she blogged every day of her pregnancy while she was on bed rest in the hospital. I will never forget that. And it it started to change something in me. And then obviously when I met Dr. Jabor, he was like, this isn't your story. This is 20 years in the future from that story. We can do this. We have the tools, we have the techniques. We can make this a different story for you. And there were still times during my pregnancy, there were still times when my daughter was younger that I got very nervous. There's still a bit of Shelby in me. Like every time I get my A1C done and I bruise, I think about, driving nails through the arms because that's one of my favorite lines from Steel Magnolias. But it's so great that it's not my story now, but I'm also grateful that somebody told that story. Because without those stories, without all of the stories, we don't get to form our own stories or be our own authors. And so I'm grateful. I'm grateful for all of the pieces that come together. And I'm grateful for this opportunity to tell my story to hopefully encourage or inspire somebody else.
Absolutely. I honestly, Julie, I couldn't have said it better myself. Like, if you want my job to add to your long list of titles,
Nope,
just
not
know
interested.
it's always open and ready, waiting for you. But it's so right, right? Like it's this idea that when we're only told one thing over and over and over again, we believe it. And it's not until we start to see that diabetes can look differently for every single person who lives with it. It can affect their family, their friends, their social dynamics, just how they get up in the morning. And we need to be able to see the ups, the downs, the in betweens, the normal average day where you're just hanging out and you don't think about diabetes, or maybe a day when all you do is think about diabetes every second, every minute. And
Listen, there's never been a day that I haven't thought about diabetes. That'd be real nice. Sometimes I do consider it a win when I don't think about it for like 4 hours.
we'll take it. We'll take it.
Right.
And that honestly, great segue to the next point, which is kids can be demanding, unpredictable. They can make you cry one day and wait, actually, hold on. No, 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 I'm sorry, that's not right. Diabetes can be demanding, unpredictable. It can make you cry one day and laugh the next day. So honestly, now that I'm thinking about this, I think that you are a little bit more similar than maybe we even thought. So, with all of that, Julie, what's harder, taking care of your wonderful daughter or taking care of your pancreas?
So, my daughter is now a preteen. She is fully in the mean girl era of life, lion den. And every day she walks in the front door, and there is some drama, some saga, some
Yep.
issues, somebody who she hurt, who hurt her, who hurt her friend. But there is not a day with her, not a moment, not a phase of her life that has been more challenging to deal with than my diabetes.
Honestly,
Diabetes, hands down, it wins the BAT award.
I feel like that alone is such an endorsement to everyone who's scared to have a teenage daughter someday. Like, there are things that are harder. Trust us.
Yeah. And honestly, I am so incredibly lucky. My daughter is an amazing human being, and I don't take for granted how lucky I am because I know that wonderful people and wonderful parents sometimes get kids that have their own identity and pathway. But Viv has just been so amazing. She has really been part of my diabetes story all along. I don't think that there's a way to separate her story and my diabetes. I mean, she wouldn't be here if it weren't for my diabetes story. And it really, I mean, she was born 4 weeks early because of my diabetes. She was born in the middle of a hurricane because they were worried that there might not be a bed for me in the hospital. You know, like everything about her is shadowed, is somehow impacted by my diabetes. I mean, since she was very little, there were times that I couldn't pick her up or play with her because I was waiting out a low. There have been times we've been late for theater rehearsal because I can't drive because I'm waiting out a low. She's very talkative. She started talking very young, but one of her first 10 words was meter, because at that point in time, she would go get me my meter. It just, she has always been well aware. It's always been a family issue that we're dealing with, a family condition. We take care of each other. I take care of her when she's sick. My husband takes care of me. It's just what we do together. And as she's gotten older, she's asked about, like, can I learn how to do a glucagon shot? Which is, the idea of her doing that is terrifying to me. But I taught her because I learned that being empowered as a person living with diabetes made me less afraid. And so I want her to be less afraid. So I've empowered her. So, she's learned how to program my pump. She's learned how to give me a carb correct or a correction bolus on my pump. Like, she knows what buttons to push. figuratively and literally.
That's that
Um,
teenage daughter moment, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I always have let her pick out the stickers I wear on my devices because it makes her feel like she's part of it. And now when she has little kids in her school or in the neighborhood who have diabetes, she's like this little ambassador for them. And she's always being like, Mom, can I, that pump I picked out, I actually picked it out for, Sarah, can I give it to her? And so it's incredibly sweet to watch her grow into this very empathetic, very smart. She's definitely, I know for a fact, told teachers what they needed to do for her classmates whose alarms are going off. Some kids bring home stray animals. Mine brings home other people who are pancreatically challenged. It's just part of like who she is, and it makes me so proud, and it makes her feel empowered. And that is, that's one of those unexpected outcomes of diabetes. Like when I hear people say it's made me stronger, I'm always like, oh, I could have gotten stronger without it.
Without it.
But it really does help us all
Yeah.
understand the world a little bit better and a little bit differently.
I feel like there's going to be a day 10 years in the future, and your daughter is going to win the very first Destigmatized Lifetime Achievement Award for diabetes allyship. I just know it for a fact. I just have like such a distinct image of like her being there, rattle or bottle in one hand, and a little sign that says like all people with diabetes deserve everything that they need in life, because she really is. She's there on the front lines with you, and she's learning every step of the way that diabetes is difficult, but it's manageable. You can have a long, happy, and healthy life with this condition. And I just feel like it's such a, as hard as I know it can be sometimes, I feel like it is such a gift that she gets to see and be empowered by someone so close to her every single day. And that makes me very happy, just as a friend of yours and a friend of your family's. It's really wonderful to see.
You would not believe it when she comes home and tells me that she has corrected an adult for making a joke about a cupcake causing diabetes. She is more enraged than you or I could ever imagine being, and she will lay it on the line for that adult in a very respectful way. But she'll be like, absolutely not. You can't say that. That is stigmatizing, sir.
I feel like this is just an endorsement that somehow we've got to get destigmatized like into the pre-Ks. We have got to be teaching them from day one that this is not a condition that needs to be scary, or it needs to be stigmatized, or there needs to be some kind of, shroud covering this thing, but that there's so many people who are affected by diabetes every single day. And the point is that we just want to be able, as those who don't live with this, to make life a little bit easier for those who are. Now, we only have a little bit of time left. So I think I've shared this story with you before, Julie, but my dad has type 2 diabetes. And I also have a very young brother. He is, I think, 6 years old now. It's sometimes hard to keep track. But when he was like a baby, his favorite pastime was flushing, I don't know, about $100 down the drain every time he decided to play his favorite game, which was pull the Dexcom off of daddy, just right off the arm every single time. So I guess my last question is, do you have any kind of funny or silly moments with your daughter, or that happened to you as a mom with type 1 diabetes, that we can leave all of the viewers, the listeners today with, as just like a, hey, it's not always scary, it's not always dark, it's not always the bad.
Yeah, I think, like I said, Viv's always been incredibly respectful of my diabetes. So she's always been very, very cautious. But she does seem to think that everything is a jungle gym and that she should be like crawling like a monkey all over everything. And there was definitely a bedtime where I had my Dexcom in my leg and she used it like a climbing rock. And the sticker and the applicator stayed on, but the actual sensor and the entire filament ripped right off. And I
Yeah.
just had this, you know, probably cow motif sticker on my leg. And I was like, I didn't even know you could do that. Like that is a dissembling of a CGM that I've never seen before. And she, of course, felt terrible. And then asked if she could put the next one in because that's always the question.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, she just, she has gotten caught in tubing, bump tubing. The most terrifying thing for me is when she's like, "Can I give you your shot?" Because whether
Like,
it's
well, maybe hold a
blood,
second.
she really wants to stab me with one of my syringes. And I'm like, I don't like to do that to myself. Your dad is never asked to learn. Can we please not be so excited? Help mommy a different way. Stay away from my juice boxes. Stop
Yep.
eating my jelly beans. That's for Easter. She was like, I
Yep.
got you a little Easter basket, Mom. It's 3 bags of jelly beans and containers for your low snacks, which, oh gosh, every Halloween, ding dong. Oh, my mom likes Reese's. I'll get those for her low bag. And I'm like, please stop telling the neighbors that you're trick-or-treating for me. But
Just 2 Halloween trick or treat bags, just to be safe, just in case.
just in case I don't get enough of what I want, I'm going to use my mom.
Yep.
And yeah, my diabetes has definitely been used by family members to like try to get earlier seating at a restaurant, try to get a drink, to apparently try to get more trick or treat candy.
Kids
Um,
are innovative, they are smart, they will figure it out.
exactly.
Well, Julie, I just want to thank you so much. I wish I could talk about this with you like for another hour, but we are just at about time. So I just want to say thank you again so much for sharing your story, for being here with me today and helping to add, a little bit more color to what life with diabetes really looks like. And I hope that this resonates with so many people this Mother's Day. Now, for everyone else, if you enjoyed listening to our first episode of Spilling the Tea, I hope that you will follow us at A Spoonful of Laughter on Instagram. That is at A Spoonful of Laughter on Instagram. And of course, please write in to share what topics or guests you might want to see in the future. And you can do so by writing into us at stigma@diatribe.org. That is stigma@diatribe.org. And all of that will be in the caption below. So take care and thanks again for watching.
Thanks, Matthew.